Thank you very much. So I'm Lisa Roberts, and I'm a farmer farming with my husband and family in Eryri National Park in sort of North Wales. So just to give you a bit of background to myself and the family farm before I go into the work that we've done on our holding. So I work part-time for Farming Connect, but I also take great responsibility in running the family farm, as I said, with my husband and his family, alongside running a holiday let business. Just some farm facts for you here, just to give you a bit of context to our holding and farm business. So we run 382 hectares within the Eryri National Park, and we run an additional 57 upland ground, which is outside the national park boundary. Of that, 275 hectares is actual hill ground, so lots of peatland ground there, with 90 hectares of that in a SSI scheme. Historically, for the last 35 years, we've probably been involved in agri-environment schemes since they started, starting with Tir Cymen into Tir Gofal, Glastir, and more currently the Habitat Scheme and the Sustainable Farming Scheme here in Wales. These, I believe, have all shaped our farming practice, similar to what has already been said, kind of changing stocking, density and so forth, which has probably shaped how our hill looks by now. In terms of stocking and livestock numbers, we run 700 Welsh mountain ewes, 350 Texel cross ewes as well, and rear around 120 calves annually. So I'd say it's a fairly typical Welsh mountain hill farm who sort of really look at sort of producing food, obviously as main business objective, alongside managing the habitats on our farm in the best as we can, really. So I'm going to do a little bit different to the others, so I'm going to just delve a bit more about our Peatland story, just to give you sort of background as to how it's worked for us, show you the pros and cons and go through the whole story really. So yeah, why peatland restoration? I always get asked. So through my work with Farming Connect, I came about the Woodland Carbon Code in 2017. And here kind of triggered to me that, you know, if trees, they can access kind of private funding to do sort of good things on their land. Well, we have peatland on our farm. We don't have many, we do have a lot of trees, but the land that we have there's not many places that we can plant trees. It's more kind of, as I say, the peatland. So it dawned on me that there's an opportunity here maybe as a farmer to look at maybe private investment to better manage our hill ground and try possibly to move away from that public funding and those prescriptive agri-environment schemes, which we felt didn't really suit what our business objectives were. So it was kind of matter of right place at the right time. I got in touch with Eryri National Park during my maternity leave. I needed something to do, obviously. Yeah, it was a matter of right place at that time. They were embarking on the Welsh Peatland Sustainable Management Scheme and were looking for a farm to become, in theory, a guinea pig farm for their scheme. And we were keen to jump on board purely because we saw that this could be, well, it was a combination really of curiosity, opportunity, and a desire to enhance our farm habitats. You know, it's a resource that we have on our farm, which we probably weren't doing too much of. And as I say, the previous agri-environment schemes we felt weren't probably fitting what we wanted to do on our farm. So that's where we came from really as to the why. So we restored 66 hectares, so back in 2020, 2021, just a map of the area here on Bwlch y Groes. So it's kind of an area up on the southern part of Eryri National Park. We restored 66 hectares of peatland, which is SSI land on Bwlch y Groes. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's the first carbon-funded peatland restoration project in Wales, and we're not big landowners. We're just a family farming business. So it was kind of going into the unknown, and we relied very heavily on the knowledge from Eryri National Park, which was invaluable for the project delivery. We received at the time blended funded from the Welsh Peatlands SMS, which funded the majority of the restoration work, and then we went the whole way through and sold carbon credits through the Peatland Code, which supported the funding of the project. So the actual process itself, as I said previously, we were so lucky to have Eryri National Park involved in our project. They were instrumental really in delivering and developing the project from word go. They collected all the baseline data on our behalf to be able to create that restoration plan. So it began with aerial photography and then on to ground truthing. And then from there on, then we completed the application for the Peatland Code. So due to this being a SSSI site, obviously we needed to also grant consent of works via NRW, Natural Resources Wales, and Welsh Government, as this obviously was the first kind of peatland project of its kind. So just to make sure we were ticking all the boxes and being compliant for everything that we needed to do. And then finally, then we validated the site at the time, or going over just over 5 years ago now, with organic farmers and growers at the time. So the process, I don't need to explain to you here in the room what sort of peatland restoration is and how it's done, but just to give you an idea of what we did on our farm. But again, this was delivered and the administrative side was supported by Eryri National Park, but we brought in specialist contractors to undertake the work, and we reprofiled some of the hags and blocked some of the ditches, but the main majority of the work with us was eroding hags, where we had 51% of the land area drained by hags and gullies, and average peat depth on this site was about 0.8 metres, 0.8 metre. So the carbon finance element, as I said previously, is kind of very much the unknown. We really did not have any experience of this. We're farmers, we know a lot about livestock, but not very much about sort of private funding. And at the time, it was a very new experience for everyone involved, not just us as farmers, it was also National Park, etc. And after lots of time, I couldn't find anybody to sort of give me much guidance on it really from a farmer's perspective. So we decided at the time to go with a carbon broker, rightly or wrongly. So we did. We had no idea of how to put in any legal kind of paperwork to sell carbon credits on an open kind of market. So we decided to go with Forest Carbon at the time. They seemed fairly kind of, they knew what they were doing, and I felt in safe hands. So for our specific site, after taking into account obviously buffer and leakage, etc., we were told that there would be 2,336 tonnes of carbon sequestered on our particular site. So just to give you kind of that in kind of real term figures maybe, that equates to the burning, the carbon dioxide generated from burning 632 household tanks of oil. So that's based on DEFRA figures. So just to give you a bit of context there to sort of how that looked like. Again, maybe known for you, many of you in the room here, but just to give you an idea of kind of ongoing costs involved. So through selling the peatland, through going through the Peatland Code and selling carbon credits, we obviously needed to commit to validating and verifying and registering obviously our site. So these are costs, by the way, five years ago, and we are just about to embark on our first verification visit, so they might be a bit outdated, but just to give maybe any practitioners or farmers in the room an idea from a farmer's perspective, the cost involved. So when we sold our carbon credits, we sold it at a time where the market was very much kicking off really 5 years ago. So they were sold, they're probably worth a hell of a lot more now, to be honest, but that's another story. But anyway, just to give you an idea, this is ongoing cost for us, just purely on validation, registration and verification, which is just over £8,000 for this one site, let alone the other additional cost there may be in future years if we needed to do any further restoration work, because obviously we're bound to a contract of a 35-year contract to make sure that this site remains as it is for a 35-year period, or in a good state at least. So I'll finish with some of the kind of key lessons learned from our point of view as farmers on the ground. Sort of positives, we really benefited from having Eryri National Park part of this project and having that hand-holding experience. They were key in taking us through the whole modelling, the data from data collection to the ground truthing, right through to all the paperwork and everything. And I work for, I work off farm as well, and I'm quite fairly used to paperwork, but it's still fairly daunting for me as an experience. So definitely a farmer would find it probably a similar kind of a similar daunting feeling really to embark on. To date, obviously we're 5 years in, I might be telling you a different story in 10 years time and so forth, but to date, 5 years in, we haven't had a huge impact to the business. When Eryri National Park approached us to do this project, it was very much we wanted to make sure that we continue to do the primary farm business objective, which was to produce food. We're farmers, that's our main income source, but also obviously it's all, we try and do that as much as we can and support all the habitats that are on the farm as well. So that's very important to us in addition to producing that food for the nation. So it didn't really impact our business. We haven't seen any general animal health issues from doing any peatland restoration work, and no more animal losses either due to doing it. But to this particular site, the wet areas don't encroach the whole area. We have wet areas in parcels of the land, and there are drier bits then for the livestock to graze. So I think for us it was important to have that habitat, mosaic of habitats on the hill, not just have one blanket bog, and then so the sheep play a key role in managing those habitats and having that mosaic of habitats on the hill, not just a kind of a blanket approach. So that was very important. Some noted benefits as well. There was less peat contamination on fleeces, which was obviously very beneficial for the shearers, for the wool packers, and obviously I'm sure for the British Wool Board as well. And then gathering was much easier. There was no hags for those sheep to hide in, which I'm sure the sheepdogs were very glad to have that making gathering much easier. Then maybe for the negative elements, or the clear challenges really. Obviously, as I mentioned before, administrative burden is huge looking at this kind of work, so I would have never been able to create this restoration plan and plan the works ourselves. So expertise is very much required. We don't have that as sort of farmers, so we're very, very lucky to have that as a support network. As we've mentioned previously, carbon market is very volatile, so we committed to this 5 years ago. It looks very different again now, and I'm sure it will do in the years to come. It's also the time commitment. So 35 years is a long time. We're quite lucky where the situation we are. We can commit to 35 years, but maybe my husband's father would have been quite daunted to commit to that himself, as obviously he couldn't manage the land for that period of time. So just things to be wary of. Also, as farmers, we need to account for our own carbon footprint, especially now with the new scheme that's coming in, sustainable farming scheme. We need to account for our own carbon footprint ourselves. So selling credits is something you just need to be wary of, that we know where our own position is at before going off to sell any carbon credits. Peatland restoration is costly. So again, I've sold carbon credits 5 years ago. They weren't worth a hell of a lot, but I might need to embark on a lot more costs in the future. And it is kind of worrying. Is that going to be something that we need to sort of take on as a business in the future? But yes, it was just something that we were interested in learning, and it was something that we were happy to be involved just to see where we could go with this. And then just another thing maybe from a farmer's perspective, which I've noticed more recently, the SFS, the new Sustainable Farming Scheme, have highlighted or put out guidelines for very, very low stocking densities on peatlands, especially restored or restoring peatlands. For us, for example, as a farm ourselves, I looked at it briefly, and it would mean reducing our stocking density by down to 10% of what we currently run. So it's kind of, yeah, quite a scary concept maybe for some farmers going from previous agri-environment schemes. Is that's how it's changed overnight, really, going from one scheme to another. So yeah, I mean, there's room for grazing. We manage grazing effectively to try and manage our habitats. I think this blanket approach, which has been mentioned before, we need to be careful of those messages going to industry. You know, we've had farmers managing lands for generations. And more recently have been doing so within agri-environment scheme prescriptions. And I know a lot of farmers were disagreeing with a lot of those prescriptions being made. So as I say, I think reducing livestock densities, yeah, that's great, but what we're going to get is, we've seen it on some parts of our land, is scrub and you know, heather encroaching, and that's no good for biodiversity, livestock or anything else. You know, we need livestock on hills, we need them to manage our habitats. They have a place. Obviously, we need to manage them effectively, but yeah, we just need to make sure we have that dialogue as farmers and governments and anybody else involved, really, to make sure we get the best out of those land areas for the benefit of the environment, but also to keep, you know, food production really as well. And that's me. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you very much.